podcast. My name is Paxton. I'm a pastor here at High Point Church. I'm joined today by these two handsome young gentlemen looking great on our new camera setup. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I got it. I'm Charlie. I'm new to High Point. My wife and I go here. We have a 9-month-old son named Vance. Our name is Emma. She's at church, say hi. And I'm leading at Lift, so I'm leading the 6th grade group, and I'm pretty excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm. My name is Skylar. I am a high school senior, and I go to Memorial High School, and I've been part of youth group since the summer, and I've loved it since I came for the first day.
Yeah, it's been great to have you guys. I guess I should have said too, I'm the new next gen pastor is like technically my title. So I work with young people.
Officially.
Yeah, officially. That's soon to be official, but that's basically what I am by the time this comes out, probably. So anyway, I work with the students, and you guys happen to be a leader and then also a student. So excited to be here. We're going into a series on intoxicating substances at High Point Church, and so that we had planned to do this conversation and this podcast, which is going to be about drugs, but I think it's timed out really well because we're about to go into a series with the broader church on substance abuse, and specifically the title of that series is going to be Consumption and Communion, but it talks about the consuming nature of our society and in relationship with church, but it also go into like talking about drugs and how that's an example or related to that topic. But today we get to talk about drugs, and all of us here have an experience with that. And so I think this will be really helpful. Our goals really today are just to share our stories and our experiences, and then hopefully to allow those stories to help people who are listening, if you're wrestling with drugs or if you're just thinking about how to pastor your kids or deal with it yourself. So you guys want to start in sharing just a little bit about your background? Maybe Charlie, you can lead off, or I can go first. Maybe I'll go first. So for me, my experience with drugs has been really just in college and alcohol. I went to UW-Madison, which is a very big party school. You go to UW-Madison right now, Charlie, so he's familiar with this.
I do.
I remember when I was a freshman at UW, everyone on my floor, it felt like, went out. On the first weekend we were at UW-Madison to party and drink alcohol underage. And I was like, I guess this is what people do here. It was like seen as normal.
Easy as that,
and so,
I guess.
And so I was like, I guess that's what I should do. And so that's what I did. And I was really into the party scene for probably like 2 years, one of my first 2 years at UW-Madison. And it was one of those things that was like so central to the culture that I didn't really critique it. I was never like thinking like, oh, this is wrong, because it was just what everyone was doing. But looking back on it now, I can see how that culture really was harmful for me, for both my studies, but me as a person. Just like always looking forward to the weekend and like the next time I could drink. And it was just a problem. So when I became a Christian later on in college, it was partly because I had hit such a big low from this party scene, and like I never felt like it could really give me all the answers I was looking for and fill the void that I felt in my life. And so I came to Jesus, and then since then drinking kind of slowly petered off from there for me into what is now reasonable level. I still drink alcohol, but really just only at home to enjoy an evening with friends or family or something like that.
Interesting.
So
how old were
experience.
you? If I can interject, how old were you when you started?
Probably like 18.
18?
Yeah, so I was underage drinking, which I do not condone. Don't do that. But it was so normal. I mean, it's still normal today. I mean, Charlie, like that.
I think it's more normal now than it used to be, probably.
Yeah, it's so standard. And we're not condoning that at all, but it's just the way things are right now, especially in our city in Wisconsin. So
if you ever see like an aerial view of Manhattan, all the pedestrians are walking down the street. They're just head down, looking at their phone. They're not really paying attention. They're all going the same direction. And that's kind of like the same hive mentality that you can have at Madison. It's like everybody's doing it. It's like you don't even notice what you're doing because you're just going along with the crowd. It was
a weird thing as a high schooler. I came from like a pretty, like I didn't drink as a high school student. So like going to college, and then it would like really shifted. It was like, oh, now this is just what you do. Yeah. It was very odd. But as a kid, I wasn't like thinking that critically about it. But that is often how it goes. Yeah. So anyway, I guess you're closer to that now, Charlie. You want to share a little bit about what your experience has been?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to hear that you started at 18. My story starts way earlier, unfortunately. So 6th grade was the first time that I encountered substance. So I was vaping. Super common these days. it's actually really, really scary, the percentage of middle schoolers that are trying vapes for the first time. I mean, they're 12 years old, 12, 13 years old. So I tried that, because I thought it was cool. My friend's older brother was like, hey, try this. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, all my friends are doing it. Same.
This is marijuana in the vape, or is it?
No,
nicotine vape?
this is just a nicotine vape. This is before the marijuana, which I definitely got into later. And I did that for a bit and quickly started smoking pot with a lot of my buddies in Sheboygan. It's where I'm from. It's a little surf coastal town right on Lake Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be kind of hard pressed to find somebody that hasn't tried weed at least once in their life. I mean, it's kind of a stoner town, if you're asking me, and I think if you ask anybody else. So kind of like you said, being at Madison, it was easy for you just to go along with it. It's same for me. And I went to a Christian school, two loving Christian parents. They had no idea, at least for a while. And what's interesting is that, you started when you were 18 years old, but literally 40% of kids start before, 40% of drug users, I should say. If you take a big group of drug users, 40% of those people will have started before they were 14 years old. I did. And 90% of drug users started before they were 18. So those are just some statistics that, are widely recognized. You can look it up on the internet. From there, I experienced some deaths in high school. My good buddy died really suddenly in a tragic hunting accident. And then shortly after that, another one of my buddies got hit by a semi-truck. Really, really close together. And I think what happened at the time is I was already doing this stuff. I was vaping and I was smoking pot. And it was just super easy for me to go, you know what? Screw it, man. Like, nothing else matters. I was depressed. I was anxious. I didn't know how to regulate my emotions. So I dove into other drugs. I tried Xanax for the first time, crashed my car on Xanax. So my parents found out that I was struggling with substance abuse at this time. They tried to help me, but I didn't really listen. I kept on smoking pot. And eventually my parents thought it'd be a good idea for me to get out of the United States. So they said, Charlie, you should go study abroad, senior year of high school. So, even me in my immature thinking, I thought, okay, I'm going to go do that. I went to Spain. I thought it'd be a good way to get away from the drugs. And I actually ended up just doing more. Experimented with other drugs other than weed. I experimented with narcotics. I came back to the United States after my trip, addicted to narcotics. And then from there on, I just kind of I spiraled really, really quickly. And it wasn't until I had a encounter, I like to call it really, I had just came home after couch surfing for 2 months. I told my parents, hey, I'm gonna get clean. I came home, and I remember being on my hands and knees, just crying out for help because I couldn't stop. And I told my parents I was gonna get clean, and then as I'm home at my house, after just telling my parents that I was gonna get clean, I was texting my dealer again. I just couldn't stop myself. So I was crying out, and I remember distinctly hearing God's voice, him telling me that it was going to be okay and that I could come home. And I talked to Pastor Nick about this, and he's like, that's pretty anticlimactic. But what's interesting is that most of the stories of people encountering God, it is kind of anticlimactic because you expect it to be like this big, him just like crashing through the ceiling, saving you. But he literally just said, it's going to be okay. You can come home now. And after that moment, I never did narcotics ever again. 80% of people that get addicted to narcotics relapse more than one time. 80%. And it was God's voice. He spoke, he saved me. And after that, I started pursuing him fully and intentionally. And I had to make some hard choices. I had to hang out with different friends. Coming to Madison actually surprisingly helped, even though this is a party central, but I chose to set up with the right friends. And with the help of my girlfriend who turned into my now wife, I was able to stay on track and keep accountable. And now here I am, hopefully being able to pour back into other kids that might have questions about this or are struggling. So that's my story.
Yeah, and I'm so glad, and I know obviously you're about to share Skylar too, but it's good. I think it is good, especially if you're like a student listening to this or you're a parent, you're like, why are they talking about this to teens? And we often forget that the exposure is really young. Even at Middleton High School, which is a local school, there were a lot of kids smoking weed in the bathroom when I was there, which was a while ago. It's much easier to get that sort of stuff nowadays.
And these days they're doing it on the vape pens,
right,
like you
which is
mentioned.
easier to smuggle around.
You barely smell it. So
right. But I also liked what you said about like it's just the going with the flow in a certain place. I think so often drug use is related, at least in college, to like friendships. Like it's like if you're not doing it,
Yeah.
it can become a thing that comes between you and the other people who are.
Yeah.
Because friendships can be built around this thing, whether it's alcohol or some other drug. And we'll talk later as we get into the theology, hopefully, of drug use about like maybe if there's some positive elements to that, at least in the case of alcohol. But we'll get there eventually. So, Skylar, do you want to share a little bit too?
Yeah. So I'm, like you said, I'm a teen, and I am currently 17, but I actually started before both of you guys. I started in 5th grade. I smoked weed for the first time with my cousin. His name's Isaac, or Taylor. He goes by a lot of different names, but eventually I just started smoking, and I don't really remember a lot, like, coming up. I just was using a lot of weed, and I never really got into vaping, ever. But eventually it turned into Xanax in middle school. And when I started doing Xanax, it was the only time that I felt like my head was, like, it was clear, and it was the only time that I actually felt, like, at peace. But, and later I realized that that's not what God wants, and it's not what he wants for me. He wants me to like, I also had a really rough upbringing with my parents and a lot of stuff with my own life, personal life. And eventually it got to the point where I was doing Xanax daily. And about sophomore year of high school, I wanted to quit Xanax. And it was after one breakup, and I did. And then a year later, I started using again, and then me and my longest relationship ex, or whatever, me and her broke up, and it really, like, hurt me a lot. So I tried to OD off of my medication, and I was just driving around and driving, and eventually I got to a street, and I was ready to take my own life by crashing into something, flooring it to the floor. And I did, and then I spun out in front of Black Hawk Church on Broadway. And when that happened, like, I realized, like, I was looking around when I spun out, and I realized, like, I was next to, like, Broadway, and, like, I, like, called my guardian. She called the cops. I went to the ER. They did whatever. And when I woke up, I turned on the TV, and the first thing I saw was a pastor. He was preaching, and at that very moment, I knew that God was really trying to help me get through my addiction. And when I got out of the hospital, I started going to church again. And fast forward it, I started coming here to High Point, and yeah, it's a daily battle, really.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. No, it's pretty raw for both of you guys. I mean, none of you I'm the farthest removed from this experience, so I know it can be tough to share that stuff. So thank you.
You know, I think what's interesting is that we both kind of had circumstances where we experienced hurt, deep hurt.
Yeah.
For me, it was the loss of family members. For him, it was a breakup. But as a teenager, like, that stuff is so common.
Yeah.
And I think, what's important for the listeners, especially the teenagers, to hear is, if you're not doing drugs yet, that doesn't mean that you're completely safe from them, or that, you're not prone to them, or that, and yeah, they sound scary. And honestly, they probably sound gross. Like, oh my gosh, how could you do drugs? But what's crazy is, I guess not crazy, but what's the truth is that you have these things that happen. They shatter your life. They pretty much shatter your reality. For me, it was losing my best friend, my neighbor, friend since 3rd grade, best friend, my brother.
Yeah.
And he's gone. And there was just a hole in my heart. And I think what really ended up happening was I was at a fork in the road, and I could have chosen God to restore me and renew me. But honestly, what was kind of seemed like the easier option was the instant gratification. Because right, God doesn't always just swoop in and save you like he did with me when I was crying on my basement floor.
It takes work.
That was special, but that doesn't just happen every day. It takes a lot of work, and like Skylar said, it's a daily battle for him. I'm a little over 3 years removed from my substance abuse, but I'll be honest, like there are times when, and like you, I'm 21 years old, so I will go out to the bar with my buddies and have a beer. I enjoy drinking beer, and somebody will be offering me pot or offering me something else, and thankfully at this point in my life, now that I have a wife and a son, and the fact that I have a lot of responsibilities, like being a leader and being a witness to other people, those are there, and they're able to help me to say no, as well as the strength that the Lord gives me. But I would be a liar if I were to say that there isn't something in the back of my head saying, oh, but it feels so good. Like you're stressed right now. You got a lot of studying to do in midterms. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're feeling the stress, the hurt, the depression, the world's telling you that it's easy just to fix like that instant gratification. It's super, super easy. But it can lead to just honestly more hurt, and it's a lie. So
Yeah.
And like with me, like the reason why I really started was like really started was because I like endured physical and mental abuse from both my parents. And so that's the only way that I like could feel like I was coping with it. And a lot of people, like, I don't know what the statistics are, but a lot of people do struggle with parental abuse. And that is something that is not okay, but I forgave both my parents, as God tells us to do in the Bible, to forgive. And yeah, God will give you the tools. If you are using right now, he will give you the tools to get sober, but he won't have you become sober. He will make you work to be sober if you truly want that to happen. And that's something that I feel like everyone experiences. And like he's gave me the tools. Like instead of drugs, I go to the gym. Instead of like, if I don't have the gym, I have rugby. I have all these different tools. And also you still have to tackle it head on. It's not just I'm just gonna ignore it. You gotta tackle it head on with the strength of God. With like when we went out on a retreat, with the armor of God, we have to tackle it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's interesting what you guys are talking about, like the needs people have and like why they go to drugs, because I think everybody can relate to that.
Yeah.
Like everybody's stressed. Everybody experiences hardship. And oftentimes the drugs that are around are things that are going to curb the pain that comes from that. And that is, in some ways, like we would say that's good, not in this, usually in the context of weed in the Christian church, but like at least with like medication and like, therapy and therapies that are, coincide with prescription drugs to like take the edge off. Christians were like, yeah, that's a good thing that we would provide ways to alleviate this pain for people. But never to like be the way that you continue to overcome the pain. Like the pain and medications that we give, like in medicine and in therapy, are so that you can do the work of, which is usually painful work, of seeking healing and getting to a place where you don't need the drug anymore.
Well, and sorry to interrupt, but I worked with a therapist for a pretty long time, trying to build tools, put measures into place. And I think one of the most sobering conversations I ever had with my therapist was, look, like, whether it's a medication or, some kind of, psychological therapy that we're going to do, whatever it is, you got to think about it like this. You are drowning in water, and somebody's going to throw you a buoy or a floaty, all right, so that you can stop drowning, but you still have to swim to shore. Okay, they're not just going to pull you in. That's not how it works. It's a buoy with no rope, okay? They're throwing you a buoy with no rope. You still got to swim to shore.
That's a good analogy. Yeah. And I think so. And I say that just to like add some nuance to this, because I think oftentimes when you hear stories like ours, you're like, oh, drugs, terrible. And
Yeah.
yes, so much hardship, so much
I
brokenness.
mean, when I was a kid, I always thought that drugs were horrible too. Like,
Yeah.
I thought that growing up.
And there is horrible drugs for sure. But at the same time, as Christians, we can't have a phobia of them to where we exclude them even when they're beneficial and helpful.
Yep.
Like in the case of medicine or in therapeutic practice, or maybe even like in the case of alcohol, it seems in the Bible is taught on to be this good part of God's creation. Like Jesus' first miracle is making wine. And in Proverbs, it talks about how wine is to make the man's heart glad. And Jesus goes to parties and he drinks wine and allegedly has a buzz, like
Multiple
it seems
times.
many times, such that people call him a glutton and a drunkard. So we gotta make, there's a balancing act to be had there. And that's, I think, a part of what this whole series is about.
Yep.
So I just throw that out there as like a little plug to the series.
Yeah.
But I do think the focus of our podcast will be more on the negative side of this, because that's our testimonies.
Yeah.
And so let's get more into that. Like, how did you both had this encounter with God. How did that help you in overcoming your drug addictions, if I can call them that?
So I guess with me, I was raised in a Christian household. My family's from the South. Like, I went to church in the South, and I guess for a while there, I kind of lost my faith, and especially when I was doing drugs, I think at one point I didn't even think about God. I didn't even think about how He's working in my life. I didn't think about any of that. I just knew I was doing my drugs the next day. I knew all about that. And that part I feel like when I had that encounter, that is the part that single-handedly saved me from most likely, it's a hard topic to say or say this, but most likely to be dead by now. Like, I would have been dead by drugs or something else, but with God, He saved me from that. He saved me from going down the rabbit hole that it just keeps looping and looping and looping, and you can't really save that. Like,
Yeah. Was it just a knowledge that God existed?
yeah,
That allowed you to have that, or what changed in you when you
It was the
encountered
encounter.
God?
It was the encounter.
Just knowing He cared,
Yeah.
that He was real.
Knowing that He was first off real, because at one point I just stopped believing that there was a God. Like, I didn't think that there was ever a God. And then He basically just showed Himself. He said, it was just like He was there, in there to save me. His Son, His mirror image.
What about you, Charlie?
Pretty powerful when God reveals Himself to you, and whether or not it's through Him, all of a sudden physically appearing in your car, which I'm not sure if that happens anymore these days, or if it's just you hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit really loudly in your head. It's powerful, and I kind of want to break up two sides to my journey, because fast forwarding to me being on my parents' basement floor, I'm struggling with addiction to narcotics. It was a sin at that point, Paxton, that I was really disgusted of. Like, I wanted nothing to do with it. I told my parents that I was getting clean and I wanted to be clean, but the thing about drugs, like harder drugs, they have a claw on you. I used to say this to people that I was trying to explain this to. It's like a polar bear claw, just snarled into your back, and you just can't get it out. You're just completely consumed by it. So when I cried out to God and I asked Him for His help, and He said, everything's going to be okay, you can come home now. To this day, like that, I mean, I haven't done it since that day, and I was cleaned. And
It's
that's
like a miracle.
That is a
in your-
miracle, and I truly tell that to so many people, and that's why I'm pretty open about my story, because it's nothing to be proud of. I used to be super ashamed.
Yeah, it's
but
a story of God's deliverance.
God really did deliver me, and I think it'd be sad not to tell people about it, because I mean, praise God that I'm here today. A leader at Lyft, a father, a husband, a student, pursuing a degree at a great school. I mean, I'm blessed. But what was interesting is that I had this other addiction that kind of clung on for a little longer, and that was smoking pot.
Yeah.
And that was just like that thing that just was stuck in me. And it took me a long time to really just be able to understand this. And honestly, just be honest with myself. But what it was, Paxton, is I didn't want to quit weed. I liked it. I liked it a lot. And it served me by making me feel not anxious. And it had become sort of my identity. I had long hair. And if you look at my driver's license still, it has like super long hair on it. So I had this long surfer hair, and I was this surfer stoner guy, and I kind of liked it. I just liked who I was, and I didn't want to change. And I was super happy that God had saved me from my narcotic abuse. I'm like, great, here I go. Like, I'm cool. And I kept feeling this ping on my heart, like, I'm not done with you yet. Like, you know what you have to do. And I knew it. But the difference right there is, complete sin that you just need saving from God from, and the fact is that he will, right? We read in Romans 6, for sin shall no longer be your master. That's what happened. Boom. It was no longer my master. But there's these other sins that we have that just kind of stick with us. And are we to go on still sinning when we've been saved? We're called to not. We're called to repent and lean into God. And I think it was a hard learning curve for me because I was really selfish, and I took for granted what God did for me. And it wasn't until, a year later that I really was able to just kind of sit with the fact that, like, wow, like, I should have gone to rehab. I could be dead. A lot of things, like Skylar said, it's a morbid thing, but it's true. And it's not something I'm proud of. It's actually something,
I'm ashamed of.
I used to be very ashamed of. And thank goodness that God has taken that shame away from me. You guys should read The Soul of Shame. It's an amazing book for anybody that's struggling with addiction. It's an amazing book because a lot of this stuff just stems from shame, in various ways, but that's for another day, another topic. But I had this idol, I had this thing that was, like a polar bear claw on me, but God took care of it. But it's the other things, the things that like really, truly you're idolizing above God. Like, he wants us to choose him. He doesn't want to just, like, he's not going to tempt us beyond what we can bear, but there are things in our life that we have to choose God over. And that's a hard reality for a lot of people.
Yeah. You felt like you had, the chains were taken off you that you could choose God, but you still had to like walk to him. So whereas before you felt like you didn't have a choice, but you had to keep on doing drugs. But then you were free from it, and he gave you a chance to walk to him. Sometimes you did, and sometimes not.
I was drowning. I was seriously drowning. God gave me a buoy, but I still had to swim to shore. Right. And it took me a while to do that. I think there was a number of things that was able to bring me to eventually being able to kick it for good. But like Skylar said, it was a daily battle for a while. And mainly just because it was that big of an idol. And I think that can go hand in hand with, in the same capacity, pornography is the same way. Yep. There's like, lust is the same way, like especially as men, it's a daily battle. We're sinners, we're going to constantly struggle, but when you are, number one, saved, and you're going to heaven, but then number two, you know that you have a job to be a witness to others. Like, I mean, how am I going to go and tell people about this story that God just came down, they didn't come, I mean, I don't know, I guess he came down, he shined his light on me and truly said, you're going to be okay, you can come home now. And how am I going to tell people that, oh my goodness, I haven't done drugs, narcotics since that day. And that's a miracle. When I'm still smoking weed, my witness is destroyed completely. And I think that was the ultimate thing that really turned me, was like, wow, like, I'm really never going to be able to give God the glory about this, because literally I'm still running away from him.
Yeah, you're still choosing this.
It was a realization.
And you're not smoking weed just for the you're not smoking weed anymore, right?
No, I haven't smoked weed in I think over 2 years now. Definitely more than 2 years. So and thank the Lord.
Yeah, I think your guys' courage in sharing about these stories is going to be really significant. And I know, Skylar, especially for you, it's so recent. I think it makes it extra hard.
I'm still going through, like he said, like, I was smoking pot past me quitting Xanax and stuff like that. And like, I was still smoking pot for a while. And actually recently I've made the decision to stop completely.
And I think for you guys in sharing your story, and for me, like when I've talked about this, it's much more processed because I've, I don't know, I'm like almost 10 years removed from that stuff. And that it gives me a different kind of perspective on it than I think you guys have. But I think when you guys tell it, even though it's raw, what's really beautiful to me about it is both of you just make it so clear that it's about God. Because I think that's where sometimes these stories get, you were kind of saying like, oh, it's so morbid for me to say this. But at the same time, life is really morbid, bad things happen. And like, as long as you don't let the morbidity and the tragedy of your guys' stories distract from God, because I think that sometimes happens with testimonies, is like the testimony is more about the person's struggles. And it's not about God. It's about their like sob story, which is hard, can be, I understand why that happens, but you guys just did such a good job of being like, I was in a rough place and God did this thing. And I think that's really beautiful. So don't be discouraged or ashamed about sharing that. And it's a good thing. I want to talk a little bit about how to help people who are like, say you're somebody who's struggling with, a desire. There's all these different desires you mentioned. I have a desire to fit in and my friends are doing drugs and they're inviting me. I have this hardship, tragedy, pain in my life I'm trying to escape. I want to just escape my anxieties. I have these pressures that are pushing me towards drug use.
Yeah.
How would you counsel somebody who's in that place? They're like on the fence, or maybe they're even using a little bit now, but it's not a huge problem. They have the choice to continue in it or not.
I think that I could talk a little bit about the friend one. So a lot of my friends pressured me into doing drugs, my cousin especially. And with that, you can't just escape it like that. You can't escape. There's only one way that you can actually escape friendships that are going to be detrimental to you, in the fact that you are still doing drugs. They're still pressuring you into doing drugs, trying different drugs to top that off. You just have to you got to tell them what your goal is, to not do drugs. And if they don't listen, that's not someone that you would want to stay friends with. Like I know how hard that can be for someone. I was in a friend group since I was in elementary school. I lost my childhood best friend, and he's not dead, but I lost him as a friend because he chose a different path than I was going down, and I had to make the best decision for myself and for my relationship with God to be able to move forward in my sobriety. And that is something that a lot of people are afraid of talking about, or even talking about to your friends, is that, hey, if this does not cut out, we can't be friends anymore. And that could be said about anyone. That could be said about a partner. That could be said about lust. Like, if a partner really wants lust and you don't want it, but you're also, everyone sins. You're not supposed to sin, but
it happens.
Oh, it happens. And lust is one of those things that happen, and you still, if that is something that it is wrong. It's not right. It's not right.
It's natural.
Yeah, it's natural. So if that just keeps on happening, you gotta cut someone off.
Sure.
And you gotta talk to them about it first. Don't just completely just cold turkey. Don't text them. Ghost them.
I like that you said that, because there is, like you said, you shouldn't go cold turkey.
Yep.
And that goes along with just the thought that you can't just run away.
Yep.
From things. That's not going to solve the problem. If you have an internal desire, and just like you said, let's, for example, say that you are in a relationship that's tempting you to get into lust. If you just run away, well, the reason you're running away, number one, is because you're also tempted, but you don't want to sin. But if you run away from it, it's not going to fix the temptation in your own heart.
Yeah. It's going to plant a seed into your brain for your next relationship.
So running away is not going to do anything. Yeah. Now, I'll be honest, I have one friend from Sheboygan that I still speak to. He happens to be the godfather of my son. He's a great dude. Justin, I love you. If you're listening to this, I'm actually going to tell him to listen to this. And he would have a lot of really great input for this podcast as well. But he and I both had to go through this season of literally doing the same thing that Skylar said, speaking with people and saying like, hey, like I'm going this way. And if you can't come with me and you can't heal like along with me and do this, and like, I don't think it's really smart for me to be around you. And quite frankly, it's going to damage me if I am. So as my friend, I hope you understand that I love you, but I'm going this way and you're going that way. And those are really hard conversations, but that's kind of like I don't want to say this, but I feel like that's kind of like a duh. Like, duh, you should stop doing that. But stop hanging out with those friends. It's very hard.
It's very hard to be able to just say, like, to even have a conversation like that with a friend. Like, it's honestly more about putting boundaries as well onto things, especially on friendships and relationships. And, like, if someone's not willing to change for you, not completely change, right? No one should ever change their personality for someone, but change their habits.
Change like their sin.
Yeah.
You want to be in relationship with people who are going to come with you in like repenting and moving towards God.
Yeah.
And like some of my closest friends now, they're all moving closer towards God, and I love seeing it. And they also help me with my like journey. Like Coletti, he was asking me about it all day. He's one of my best friends from my high school. And he was asking me about this podcast today, and I was telling him like, yeah, I'll show you the video when it comes out. And he really helped me through my struggle with lust, my struggle with drug abuse. He really just helped me in general.
Yeah.
That's kind of rare too, having people that are willing to come heal along with you. Like full disclosure, if you are, struggling with drugs and you want to move on, the likelihood that you're going to be able to take all your friends with you is
slim to none. You can't.
Probably not going to happen. And that's a hard reality to face. So the fact that you have buddies that are able to come along with you is really a blessing. And hopefully they keep doing that.
Yeah, I knew about, he actually had to make that hard decision, right? I guess we're on the topic of friends and stuff like that. He had to make this hard decision when we were freshmen because I was really going back down, because I got better for a little bit, but then I went down this horrible rabbit hole. And he had to cut me off, actually, when I was constantly doing it. And he made the decision for himself to not talk to me anymore, and it was really bad for me. And it's actually been this past year when I've really came to Christ, and I've really shown that, like, I've changed, and that we became brothers again. Like, we are brothers without the same, not the same blood, like.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to talk about people that aren't necessarily struggling with drugs, but are
I was actually going to ask, this might be a little bit of a different direction than you were going, but I was in the same vein. What should the people who don't struggle or feel like they don't struggle with drugs do to help people who are?
It's a good question.
Can build into whatever you were about to say, but I think the majority of people who listen to this podcast are probably not addicted to drugs.
Yeah, I would hope so. I very much hope so.
But probably have thoughts about it.
They probably have thoughts, but certainly they know people, even wittingly or not, they're connected with people who are. And so, like, what should we as a church be doing to help people who have a struggle with drugs? And if we actually know somebody specifically, how can we support them? I think that's an interesting question. Maybe can you weave that into whatever you're going to say?
Well, all I was going to say is for the people that are struggling is that your parents love you.
Yeah.
And Paxton and I love you. And Skylar loves you.
Yeah. And God loves you.
People who want to talk to you about your struggles because we don't want you to make the bad choice. We want you to make the right choice. Now, for people who have somebody who is struggling in their life, quite frankly, I think that's probably a good amount of people. I think most people have at least one person that they know that is struggling with substance abuse.
Invite them out to church. That's
definitely a step one. But from a human standpoint, and from like we're all brothers and sisters in Christ standpoint, I think remembering that like God is powerful and like God will and can move if that person's heart is in the right place. I think affirming, believing in them. One thing my parents never did was like give up on me. And I mean, I could give an hour lecture about how my parents are the coolest people ever because they never, ever, ever gave up on me. And they believed in me, and knowing that I had that safe place was fantastic. So for people, if you're not struggling with drugs and you feel confident enough to like sit in that sorrow with them and not be tempted yourself, then I encourage you to go and do that. Go and sit with them in that sorrow and empathize with them and understand that they're feeling deep pain. They're not just addicted to drugs and having a great time. Most people, like, I would be very shocked if you could find one person that's addicted to drugs that's like internally happy with themselves, really.
Yeah.
There's a lot of depression that involves drugs. I struggled with depression my entire life, basically, or it felt like my entire life.
That feels like a theme for this podcast is like, so much of drug use is not, it's not just that people are dumb and like, are like, oh, I'm going to do Xanax because I'm dumb.
No.
It's like,
Xanax helped me with my anxiety.
Right. It's not, and that's, it helps you with your anxiety. And I think that's what we often forget as people who, and myself still, even like as someone, I'm not addicted to drugs at this point in time. When I see that in other people, I'm like, oh, they're just making bad decisions.
There's an idiot.
Yeah, they're just dumb. But the reality is it's probably real pain going on, and everyone who's doing a drug is getting a positive benefit from it. They're solving a problem in their own heart.
They're putting a Band-Aid on the big, massive wound.
I mean, like...
And so I think if we remember that, it can give us an empathy for people who are struggling with drugs. And if someone in my small group is like, yeah, I'm smoking weed all the time, it's not just like, well, then you're dumb. Like, don't smoke weed. It's like, well, what is leading you to smoke weed? Like, why are you doing that? Are you trying to deal with your anxiety? Is it giving you some sort of joy that you feel like you don't have in other places in your life? And I am reminded of Galatians 6, where it talks about bearing one another's burdens, and that is to fulfill the law of Christ. I hope that we can have that attitude as a church with people who are in these situations, because it's a burden to like shepherd someone who's got a lot of struggles, especially with drug addiction. It's like, it's a long battle, like you guys have been saying, to shepherd that kind of person and do ministry with them. But can we have that attitude of like, oh, this problem is going to be mine too? Oh, we lost the camera.
I just think that
That's all right. We still got 2 left.
I think if you're able to just look past the fact that they're doing drugs and remember that this is a child of God who was fearfully and wonderfully made, and God knew this person before they were even conceived. This is God's precious child, and looking past the fact that they're doing something that you might deem as dirty, gross, or like despicable, honestly.
And it might be.
And it truly
may be
like
correct.
that probably is correct. But the fact that they are just as much a sinner as you, and that they're a child of God, and that Jesus Christ died on the cross for them, I think just thinking about all those things is able to wipe away that presupposition like that, if you're truly able to do that and believe it.
Yeah.
And feel it.
Skylar, you were going to say something a while ago. Sorry.
So, like, another thing with the reason why I started using Xanax specifically was that I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and they tried to put me on a lot of drugs and Xanax was the only one that like really truly worked. So, and I started abusing it really bad, and like with PTSD, you have a lot of other things like depression, anxiety. I get flashbacks of like my past. All of these things tie into it, and it really helped me through a lot of stuff like that. What I really should have been doing though was the fact that I should have picked up my Bible. I should have went to church. I should have asked for help more than just that. I should have got medication that was gonna just kept on trying different medication to help me stabilize myself to where I can work past that problems that I had. There's a lot of things that you should have, but I did not. Like I could have, but I did not do those things. And that is one of my biggest regrets in life. I don't wish that on anybody. If you are struggling internally, you like a lot of people from like High Point, come talk to me. Come talk to me if you are interested in drugs in general. And even if you just need a hug, like I'm there. Like we don't have to say anything.
I love hugs.
And you're going to point them, you're basically to say how you didn't need them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the ways that you were able to meet those needs without the drugs.
Yeah, and I feel like if I just had someone there for me when I was struggling with a lot of like physical abuse and mental abuse, if I just had someone there that was just, do you need a hug? Or even do you want someone to talk to? I don't think that I would have done like nearly as much as I did. If anything. I honestly wish that I had someone there. So like you guys, like if you guys are really struggling, please reach out to somebody. Like it does not matter who.
If you think we're going to be annoyed, that's the opposite.
No. we're gonna be loving. Like,
Yeah. And we should try to actually live up to that as a church.
Yeah.
Like, are we going to be a church that if someone comes in and they are like literally high and they're like, I just smoked, but I wanted that to be the last time.
yeah.
Are we going to be like, all right, come on in. You're in the right place, man. This is where you need to be.
You're going to give them
or-
a hug even though they kind of smell?
Like pot, like that's
terrible
real.
smell.
Like, are we going to be that kind of a community? And I think we can,
I think that
but we need to
like an
we
example
need to
of
strive
like
for that.
example of that was that we had, I'm not going to say his name, we had someone that came in to the senior boys for a little bit and he came to the fall retreat, and he was obviously struggling a lot with marijuana and nicotine, and I was trying to be there to help him like be okay with not vaping for the retreat and stuff like that, and I was just trying to tell him, and I kept on I kept on texting him afterwards too, and eventually it was not helping him, I guess. But, and I'm like, even if like you just need someone to call, like I'm there, and I guess I could have done more to help him like lead more into Christ. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and partly there's not.
You can't heal everyone.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that like in doing this, like we're gonna save everyone, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of what you're getting at. And I do think I'd say Skylar, like just speaking to that case, like I know that even though he didn't respond the way you might have hoped he would have, I know that planted seeds and he like had a really good experience on that retreat weekend, and that was partly because of the things you did.
Yeah.
And so for us too, like as we're ministering to people, generally, this goes for all ministry, particularly probably those addicted to anything, because addiction is, you're prone to relapse, like you mentioned. It's going to be oftentimes where we're planting seeds and we don't see the results maybe
Well,
for
the
years.
easy thing, Paxton, is to help them the first time.
Yeah.
That's the easy part. I mean, I hope that everybody at this church and anybody listening to this podcast would be willing to put your arm around somebody who's struggling if it's like the first time. I mean, like it's, what really stinks and is hard for people who aren't users is when these people basically kind of just slap you in the face with their disregard for, what you just did for them last week. And all of a sudden next week they're doing it again. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Most
Right.
people that know somebody in their life that's addicted to drugs, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
You can ask my parents and my siblings, it's very frustrating. And honestly, it's easy to take it personally, be like, oh, this person is like, doesn't care about me at all. They're a jerk. But this person is, like I mentioned before, they have bear claws in them, literal bear claws. And it's sin and it's the enemy trying to win us over. So we have to think about it like it's a battle. And like you can choose to play in the game, or you can choose to sit on the sidelines and be like, you know what, like this game is 40-2. Like there's no chance. Like there's a chance. Just play in the game.
With God, there's always a chance.
That's right.
We
Star
live in-
player, Tom Brady.
We're living the chance right now. Like,
Yeah, that's a good word. That feels like a good one, a good place to end.
Yeah.
Like for encouragement for people, like
yeah.
let's fight this battle together.
Yeah.
Even if it's difficult. Even
Amen.
if it's challenging.
Absolutely.
Even if it doesn't feel like there's results all the time, because like you guys are, well, all three of us, I think, are a testimony. Like God didn't save us overnight. It took a while. He worked on us for a long time, and he eventually got there, which is great.
Praise
to His
God.
glory. Praise God. All right. Well, thanks for listening for this podcast. We hope that it's beneficial. And if you want to join us on a podcast sometime, we love to have students on and talk about meaningful things. So thank you.
Thanks for listening, guys.